So we entered 2022 with the hopes of a brighter, more optimistic year. Looking at the results thus far, there's not much evidence to support that. So how do you lead your business amid this uncertainty? What should you be considering when trying to find a strategic and clever path forward? Hi Heidi and hi Brent.
Hey.
So the world's in a little bit of turmoil. I mean, obviously we're still coming out of COVID. There's trouble in Europe. Supply chains are all over the place. Fuel prices going up. How on earth do you guide a business through this current economic climate?
I think that we're actually at an interesting place that may feel really uncomfortable, but it's a place that you actually do have a lot of good tools available to you if you have processes and infrastructure for continued reevaluation of your strategic plan and your risks.
Okay.
Right now, we're looking at just broad brush, higher energy prices, uncertain commodities markets. We're looking at conflict, millions of refugees, and all of this has developed within the shortest period of time. We're looking at default in the global credit markets. We're looking at the disappearance of 30% of wheat supplies globally, I think it is, and also supplies of basic cooking oils due to purely the crops lost. That's aside from all of the COVID impacts.
I was going to say this is all on top of COVID. So what are you advising your clients, your organizations to be looking at when trying to plan in this environment?
One of the things we really look for is, are you being creative about your options and honest about your work? I worked for an organization once where my boss told me our strategic plan was make more money. I solidly don't recommend that as a detailed strategic plan.
That's a given, isn't it?
Yeah, you hope that that is an outcome of your strategy. However, what you should be looking at, whether you are the corner shop bodega or whether you are in global cosmetics, is what's my supply chain? Which is what risks am I open to? The supply chain risks are not new with the current conflict. And the second thing you should be looking at is what is my customer market and how and who am I selling to? Logistics challenges were bad before the Ukraine conflict. They've been exacerbated through spiking energy prices. So to a certain extent, nothing here is new. And the question is, have you been thinking about these issues honestly and creatively over the last 2 years? You've had 2 years to evaluate your strategic goals and come up with options.
I think one of the things we're noticing and we're helping our clients notice is that things change faster and faster. You have to be, I hate to use the term agile, but you have to be agile because you don't know what's coming next. Just within the last 3 weeks, month, things have changed dramatically that no one would have thought were going to happen. No one on their risk register had a global pandemic. No one on the risk register had one nation taking over another one in the middle of Europe. Things are changing so quickly. Can you have a strategic plan that is adaptable to ever-changing and chaotic environments? Can you have a clever path forward while dealing with all of the chaos and the complexity that the world throws at you?
A client we're working with, we have an executive workshop with her tomorrow. Her staffing levels are down by 50%, and she has finally got the approval to restaff. So what we are going to do, because she's suffering from the crisis that all of us are, is develop an internal structure that gives you that agility that Brent is talking about, that is going to allow her. She literally has to double the number of employees that she has in the next year.
Of course.
So
Yep.
rather than waiting for those people to come through the door, take the opportunity now. State what you want to achieve with this team, which is agility, flexibility, and the ability to respond to things as they happen. And we will build that out with her so that she has options.
This staff shortage that your client's experiencing, is that still a legacy of COVID?
It's a legacy of a couple different things. It's the changes in the labor market. It's also a large percentage of her staff refusing to be vaccinated, and they are government employees, and they refuse to be vaccinated.
Right.
And that actually plays very well into Brent's statement of what's on your risk register. They came through the pandemic fine with staff until the vaccination mandate came in for government employees, and then they lost 50% of their staff.
And what's your solution to this, Brent? If you could just go into a bit more detail about that.
I think it really is looking at your organization and seeing how malleable can you make your organization. Can you still perform the tasks you need to perform with a significant loss of staff? Can you still perform the tasks you need to perform if your mission shifts? In this particular organization, their requirement keeps shifting. And are they designed to be able to take resources from one area and move them to another area? Currently, they're very hierarchical and very structured and don't have that fluidity that they need.
So you're going to streamline and make that sort of whole process a little more efficient, but you're also asking that, from a structural point of view, that there's a little bit of a rethink.
It's becoming more visual to them that they need to change the way they're designed. They can't be a rigid structure anymore. The world is chaotic.
One of the more interesting phrases that I've heard in the last week was to lean into what is uncomfortable for you. And I would say that across the board, that is what we are guiding our clients to. This is not your first choice, but your first choice was we didn't have a pandemic 2 years ago. So that boat has sailed. And I think that the words matter. I think that some of the words we really underline for people are creative and clever. Don't be fixated on the perfect. Come up with the unusual so that when your market shifts, you can adapt to it. We were recently speaking to someone who sells pickles at markets here in New York City.
Now, this is the gherkin, not the onion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So this is an actual pickle vendor. And it turns out that pickle business during the pandemic spiked.
Wow.
Who knew? And
he wasn't ready for it.
He wasn't ready for it. And we started to talk about how he was shifting his supply chain. So it's not all your business is going away. It's that for everyone from the government agency to the pickle vendor, you need to be looking at risks, threats, opportunities, and being honest about them.
It sounds to me like leaning into the problem and being flexible and very reactive to change. I just have a sneaky feeling there's a lot of businesses out there that might not be capable of that because they're too regimented.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're looking at a big shift in the work environment. And it's not changing where you work. Are you remote? Are you blended? Are you back in the office? It is really a seismic shift in how work is done and how we look at work.
And we were talking with people last week who were saying it's national defense. We should cut our oil usage and cut our dependency on oil. We should be using all of these 1970s ideas from the 1970s gas crisis came out of his mouth. And I was like, that's fascinating. That's smart. That level of originality is not going to be comfortable for a lot of people.
No, it's not. No. Well, and I think also you've got to encourage openness. You've got to encourage communication. And some businesses just don't work that way. And I guess those would be the ones that fall by the wayside.
And I think historically we can look at the end of the last pandemic, you had the Roaring '20s, which was a major seismic shift in society and in culture. Yeah. Are we going to see that same thing?
I think we will. Absolutely. So what have we got to look forward to next week?
Well, we thought we'd go with, we know it's very difficult if you move to find a new dentist.
Yes.
What do you look at if you're looking for a new consultant? What makes for a new good consultant? And how do you pick one who's going to be right for you?
There you go. I know 2 great consultants, but...
Really? Share them with us.
They're amazing. Yeah, you might know them. Right, well, I very much look forward to next week. So take care, guys.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Ciao, ciao.